This is Crime Scene, a show where we're going to cover crimes of all sorts: murder, rape, torture, everything in between. Today we're going to start with the serial killer, Robert Pickton.
Pickton was raised on a pig farm in Port Coquitlam, Canada, with his mother, father, and brother. He also had a sister that lived with relatives in Vancouver because his father believed a pig farm was no place for a girl to be raised. Him and his brother took care of the pigs and cleaned them, and because of this they were known for smelling very disgusting, and no one wanting to be next to them on the bus, some kids even calling them stinky piggies. Pickton hated school and at the age of 14 dropped out and got a job as a butcher's apprentice. At the age of 11, he saved up his money to buy a calf at auction that would become his best friend. Then one day after school when he came home, the calf was missing. His mom told him to go to the barn, and when he did, he saw that the calf had been butchered, causing him to lose his only friend. He left his apprenticeship a few years later, working on the family farm full-time. He would often buy pigs at auction and butcher them. He'd bring the waste to West Coast Reduction, an animal waste facility in Vancouver. He would drop off the waste and often go to the neighborhood known as Low Track, which was known for prostituting and heavy drug use. He would frequent there, spending large amounts of money on sex. In the beginning of 1978, his father died. His mother diagnosed with cancer soon after, dying just a few months after his father. That took a large toll on him. When they passed, the three siblings split the inheritance, but not wanting anything to do with the family business, letting Robert take the farm. He lived in a trailer on the farm, taking care of it by himself, more and more frequently visiting Low Track and picking up women, but as it increased, so did his violence. In 1980, he picked up a 14-year-old girl and quickly became violent, attacking her with a knife, proceeding to rape her, then dump her off in an empty parking lot. While the girl did live, this was the start of the increasing need for the thrill that he got from causing violence towards these women. While he did say he killed 49 women and that the span of his murders started in 1983, the police were only ever able to trace the murders as far back as 1995, those being the ones we will cover. In 1984, the Pickton siblings sold the north part of the farm for $2 million. In 1996, the Pickton brothers opened a non-profit charity called the Piggy Palace Good Time Society, claiming to organize special events for certain organizations. The events they organized were raves and, quote, wild parties, many Vancouver sex workers and even members of the Hells Angels motorcycle club attending. The parties occurred in the slaughterhouse, attracting as many as 2,000 people. During this time, he murdered Diana Melnick, a known drug user. She disappeared from downtown East Vancouver. The police never found the remains of her, but found her DNA in the freezer and plastic sheet linings on Pickton's farm in 2002. His next victim, Tanya Holik, who was also a known drug user, disappeared in November 1996. Originally, the police assumed she was just partying and also speculated that she was trying to escape the responsibility of her 11-month-old son. Her DNA was found on the walls of his freezer in his workshop during the 2002 police investigation. The third woman last seen in 1996 was a woman by the name Cara Louise Ellis, also gone by Nikki Trimble. She was 25 years old and not reported missing until October 2002. While there were charges filed against Pickton for her murder, I cannot find anything indicating her remains or DNA was found on his farm. On March 23, 1997, Pickton was charged with the attempted murder of Wendy Lynn Eistetter. She was a prostitute he picked up. They went to his trailer. During sex, he tried handcuffing her, but she broke free. Pickton chased after her with a knife, stabbing her. Wendy, able to get the knife from Pickton, stabbed him and eventually escaped the farm. An elderly couple picked her up and took her to Eagle Ridge Hospital. Pickton went to Eagle Ridge Hospital for his wounds as well, where they got the key from him and removed the handcuffs from Wendy. Unfortunately, Wendy's testimony did not provide enough evidence to lead to an arrest, prosecutors believing that since she was a drug addict, that she was too unstable, thus causing the case to be dismissed. A few months later, the Pickton brothers were sued by Port Coquitlam officials for violating zoning ordinances, neglecting agriculture of which it had been zoned, and, quote, having altered a large farm building on the land for purpose of holding dances, concerts, and other recreations. They ignored it, eventually having their society's nonprofit status removed for inability to procure financial statements, thus causing the Piggy Palace Good Time Society to disband. During this time, he was believed to have committed the murders of Andrea Faye Borhaven, Sherry Irving, Helen May Hallmark, Marnie Lee Frey, and Cynthia Felix, butchering them, and was believed to have dumped some, if not all, of the remains at West Coast Reduction. During 1988, he was believed to have killed 4 more women: Carrie Kosek, Inga Monique Hall, Sarah De Veris, and Angela Rebecca Jardine. While he was charged with these 4, 9 more women disappeared in downtown Vancouver in 1998. All of them were dismissed by the police, believing they just left Vancouver, not believing any foul play was involved. Ellen Allen, a woman who ran a shelter for prostitutes in downtown Vancouver, reported many of these women missing, but the police never followed them up. Lynn Ellingson, a friend of Pickton, lived with him on the farm for a few months in 1999. During her stay, one night, she saw a light coming from the slaughterhouse, and went to see who was in there. When she entered, she saw Pickton skinning Georgina Faith Papin. She never went to the police out of fear, but did blackmail Pickton about the incident on more than one occasion. In 1999, he killed another 6 women: Georgina Faith Papin, Brenda Ann Wolfe, Jacqueline Michelle McDonald, Jennifer Lynn Furminger, Wendy Crawford, and Tiffany Drew. Though by that time 30 women had gone missing in Vancouver, police dismissing most of them. During this time, many women working the streets grew very concerned, noticing how many people they knew were disappearing and nobody knowing how. Bill Hiscock, employee on the Pickton farm, started noticing that a lot of the women who visited the farm eventually went missing. He would inform the police of Pickton, saying they should look into him as a possible suspect for these missing women cases, but they never followed him up on the tip. Because of these constant disappearances, it became harder for Pickton to pick up women by himself, so he had help from a friend, Dinah Taylor. She would go to women's shelters and try to lure women to Pickton's farm by telling them, "Let's party. He's got drugs, booze, and money." Some women would go. He would accuse them of stealing from him to build up a rage and then would attack them. Between 2000 and 2001, he murdered another 8 women: Deborah Lynn Jones, Patricia Rose Johnson, Heather Chinnook, Heather Kathleen Bottomley, Andrea Joesbury, Serena Abbotsway, Mona Lee Wilson, and Diana Rosemary Rock. With 62 women missing by 2001, the police could no longer ignore the problem. They launched the Missing Women's Task Force. There was a $100,000 reward for any information that would lead to an arrest. 12,000 calls were made to the task force, many mentioning Pickton. He was added to a list of suspects, but because he had no criminal history, they didn't look into him any further. As time went on, Pickton got more and more violent. When he picked up Mona Wilson, instead of taking her to his trailer, he took her to an RV behind his barn. After sex, he beat her, then shot her, which was very out of the norm for Pickton. It seemed the more he killed, the more aggressive he got. By the end of 2001, 64 women had disappeared in Vancouver. On February 1st, 2002, a truck driver that worked on the farm informed an officer that he had seen illegal firearms in Pickton's trailer. Police, taking any leads possible, got a search warrant for the farm. 4 days later, they would investigate the farm and discover the horrors that happened on that farm. After Pickton was arrested for the firearms charge, the police received a second court order to search the farm as a part of the ongoing missing persons case. They found an inhaler with Serena Abbotsway's name on it. They found Mona Wilson's blood on a mattress and her remains in a bin outside the RV that she was shot in. This was enough for the police. They interrogated Pickton for 11 hours, but he denied everything. That's when they decided to put an undercover officer in the cell with him. During this time, he bragged about how he was going for an even 50, but got caught because he got sloppy. He also implied that he used an animal disposal plant to get rid of the bodies. On February 22nd, Pickton was charged with the murders of Serena Abbotsway and Mona Wilson. On April 2nd, 3 more charges were added for the murders of Jacqueline McDonald, Diana Rock, and Heather Bottomley. On April 9th, the charge for the murder of Andrea Joesbury was also added. In the following months, the charges for 9 more murders were added. In May of 2005, 12 more charges were added, including one for a Jane Doe. That charge was eventually lifted. The reason for why it was lifted was not released due to a publication ban during the trial. With 27 first-degree murder charges laid on Pickton, this made it the largest serial killer investigation in Canadian history. During the investigation of the farm, the police found the heads and hands of Serena Abbotsway and Andrea Joesbury in a freezer. In March of 2004, Canadian health officials issued a horrible statement that due to cross-contamination, that human remains may have been transferred to some of the pork meat sold by the farm. It was estimated that the investigation cost up to $7 million and lasted 22 months, and Pickton was charged with 27 first-degree murder charges. Boots that were confiscated during the 1997 assault charge of Wendy Lynn Eistetter showed DNA evidence of 2 of the missing women. Pickton's trial began January 23, 2006, where he pleaded not guilty to 27 charges. The Jane Doe was dropped due to lack of evidence, and the remaining 26 were split into 2 groups. One group of 6 that he would eventually be convicted of, and 20 that would be stayed on August 4th, 2010. The trial for the other 6 charges started in January of 2007. The details released were disgusting. Quote, skulls cut in half with hands and feet stuffed inside, the remains of one victim found stuffed in a garbage bag, and her blood-stained clothing found in Pickton's trailer. Part of another victim's jawbone and teeth found beside Pickton's slaughterhouse, and a .22 caliber revolver with a dildo attached containing both his and his victim's DNA. Pickton claimed to have attached the dildo to his weapon as a makeshift silencer. During the trial, one juror was almost removed, accused of having already made up her mind, and after the judge questioning her and saying, quote, it's reported to me you said, from what you have seen, you were certain Mr. Pickton was innocent, that there was no way he could have done this, and that the court system had arrested the wrong guy. She denied it completely and was allowed to remain on the jury due to no evidence she made these claims. On December 8, 2007, Pickton was found not guilty on 6 counts of first-degree murder, but is guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Neil Mackenzie said that the prosecution of the other 20 murders would likely be discontinued. Quote, in reaching this position, the branch has taken into account the fact that any additional convictions could not result in any increase to the sentence that Mr. Pickton had already received. Pickton still hasn't been convicted for the 20 other charges and is also believed to have committed the murders of Marianne Clark, aka Nancy Greek, Yvonne Marie Bowen, Dawn Teresa Cray, and 2 other unidentified women, but no charges for these murders have been laid. In 2016, there was a book titled Pickton in His Own Words, claimed to be written by Pickton. This caused a lot of controversy about how he was profiting off his crimes. And while the author on the front of the book says Michael Childress, it was actually written by Pickton, who was able to get it to him, where Michael typed up the book and credited himself, but in reality was written by a serial killer. Outskirts Press seized publication of the book, and Amazon removed it from their website. At the end of every single one of these crime scene episodes, we're going to cover a missing persons case. So, while we do the episode and cover the bad, we can hopefully cause some good out of this series. The missing persons case for this episode is 13-year-old Jayme Closs. She went missing October 15th, 2018 in Barron, Wisconsin. She was last seen at a family gathering Sunday afternoon and had disappeared after police reported to a 911 call at the house where they found her parents dead, but Jayme was nowhere in the house. But they do believe she was at the house during the murders. Jayme is 5 feet tall and 100 pounds with strawberry blonde hair and green eyes. She may have been seen in Miami, Florida in the afternoon of October 15, 2018 in the area of Northwest 27th Avenue and 11th Street. She was in a black Ford Explorer with a possible Wisconsin's license plate I60WER. If you have any information about Jayme, call 855-744-3879 or call 715-537-3106 or call 1-800-843-5678 or 1-800-THE-LOST or use hashtag FindJayme on Twitter.